Welcome to episode 31 of the World Builder's Anvil. Today's guest, Bill Treadwell. Bill Treadwell is an Englishman from Birmingham, UK, who is doing well as being a full-time civil engineer technician, but is now the chief world builder of Caladria.com. He's a keen explorer of alternative worlds of fiction and their construction. He is proud to be a geek of RPG, LARP, and board games. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. Okay, first, for full disclosure on this, I'm actually doing work for Caladria. That is how we say it, right?
Yeah, I've been saying it, so.
Okay, good. And Bill is the lead world builder there, so he's one of the few world builders that gets to tell me what to do, at least in this world. And so, hello, Bill. Is there anything else you'd like people to know about?
No, I think there's not much. As I said, we've short and sweet, and I think people are more interested in world building than me at the moment.
Awesome. So, how do you feel today? Do you feel orc or elf?
I've had a week of feeling like an orc, and so I'm slowly going back towards an elf today, so I'm just going to say half orc.
So now tell us about your latest work. Tell us a little bit about this Caldera project that's going.
Okay. Well, basically, Caldera is an indie fiction syndicate website where a small team have come together to try and create a single website to control the world building and create a history of a fantasy world from its Stone Age right through to however it ends. As we haven't got there yet, I can't answer that one. But effectively, it's people who've done fiction writing for a while, aware of their limitations, I think, and they've set it up and they've created this brilliant website over at www.caldera.com, which is basically a sort of the world Bible, which I think you like to call it on your podcast. But it's all there, and people can look at stuff. If they want to know about a particular town or a particular individual, then it's got a built-in wiki on the back of the stories. Now, it's quite a big thing, and so what we're trying to do as we go along is that we are creating publications that are, I suppose you'd call them, magazine, e-magazines, e-novels, and e-novellas, and we're slowly building up these. At the moment, we're still very early doors, as I think you're aware. And at the moment, we've only just released the second issue of the general stories called Fab Fables 2, which is a collection of various short stories from the world, set around the end of the Stone Age, start the Copper Bronze Age, involving the main players.
One of the interesting things I find about the concept is you have multiple world builders that are essentially working with you to help develop the world. And I would assume that you're probably doing a lot of the big picture stuff. And right now, as you bring in more world builders, getting them acquainted with the software and how to create content for the world. So are you just doing a lot of big picture stuff, or are you going in and doing world building for stories and the big picture world building?
Well, at the moment, the idea is the chief builder will be the big picture person there. But as we don't have enough builders at the moment, I'm having to get involved quite a lot with the smaller stuff. Indeed, at the moment, we've only got a build team of 3, including yourself. So I'm having to think about a lot of things, along with Cal, who is the technical guru, who keeps the website going, and who started off as the world builder, but he was finding doing database and the world building was taking its toll on him. So they invited me to take this over, I don't know quite, but my buddy did. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. And we're trying to get more builders to help us. But yeah, I'm certainly still looking at big picture stuff, and I'm only doing little picture stuff as and when the editorial team led by Lee require us that.
Now, are you going to be involved in writing at all? Because one of the questions I usually like to ask is, how do you tie the world building back to the story? And maybe it's a little more complicated here. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I actually did write one of the stories in Fab Fabes too. So yes, I'm hoping if I can get more builders, I'll have a chance to write again and tie back. But certainly in Caladria, builders still need to be involved in the story because we still need to help the editors on the continuity checks and making sure that things that are happening are consistent between stories written by 3 different authors. Because it's they might all be writing in the same culture, but if that culture is radically different from town to town, it's going to stand out.
Yeah, it's not really one culture at that point anymore.
No.
So when did you know you had a love for world building? How did you get started into this process of world building?
That's a very good question, and I've been thinking about that I don't think I can give you a clear date and say, on that date. Well,
we need an exact date.
Nah. But I've always enjoyed writing. I've always enjoyed role play games of the various types, and I've always enjoyed visiting the new worlds. And I realised that over time that I do enjoy the difference between them and the logic that goes into some of these different worlds. And I've enjoyed trying to create my own worlds and go, well, if that's different, what's the consequence of it? And it was ironically, I think someone said to me I was good at world building when I was writing stories for something now defunct. It was just when I was actually pitching to the team as any other writer of, well, from the back of this story you could do this series with these consequences, and they decided that I would be ideal to be a world builder. And being the first there, I got the chief job. So
more of a shock to you than anything else. Okay.
I think that's a fair.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people world build without knowing it. You know, they do it natively, making their stories, but they don't realize that they're actually building the world.
I think I'd have to agree with you. It's the core thing in any story is you have to have a believable world, even if what you might need to believe is how the unicorns react.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what was that one moment, that I can moment, that you could actually take this from being just a hobby and, whether it be through the writing or the world building or another facet, actually start trying to actually make money from this?
I think it was literally when I came on board with the Caladria project, because I'd never thought, honestly, I could make much money out of it writing. I know my limitations as a writer, but no, it's getting involved in what is a major project, a major new idea, and being asked to take on such a critical role for it. But I realised, well, these people have faith in me. Obviously, I can do this.
No, like I said, it's a very exciting project, which is obviously why I stepped in. I usually don't work in other people's worlds, but it was appealing enough that I wanted to learn more about it. So it's a great experience and exposure for me, too. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and I think we appreciate having you on board as a builder because, as I've said before, in email and in our other instant communication systems, it could easily support 10 builders, and at the moment we've got 3, including you and me. So,
and most of us, unlike you, are just learning what to do in there, so it's a slower start. So what would you say your biggest achievement to date is?
My biggest achievement to date?
And this doesn't have to be the world building. You can open it up to whatever you want.
I think I'd actually say it was when I actually created the characters and sat down and thought, well, how do I write a Stone Age goblin and dwarf story and because there's a great lady and she she had a basic idea to run with, and I looked at it and thought, well, yeah, but how do I do different? And I did find something that was twists. I won't spoil the twist for anyone who wants to go and actually read Fab Fabs. But yeah, I think it was an interesting twist. And the fact that we actually got to a state where someone else agreed it was fit to be published, even and paid for published, I think it was an achievement.
I think it's interesting too, because I think too often fantasy fans, probably because of the historical, like, sort of peak stories, always think of the sort of medieval period as being the fantasy period, and not realizing, and that's one of the things I used to say about my world, it goes from the Stone Age to the Space Age.
Yeah.
And hopefully not too much further, or the end might be a little boring. But,
oh, we never know, or it could end up in a post-apocalyptic world.
That's right. Most definitely.
As I said, but that's all up for the writers to find out as they write their stories, and we'll see where it takes us. But yeah, it's the history that I think it's going to make Caladria, once we get it really full strength running, because it can basically support any story, anywhere, pretty much. Because we've got the huge database in the back of the website that I think you're now Cal showed you, and it's growing almost daily. Even I'm still finding things where I'm going, oh, I can do that. There's a story in that. I should mention that to someone.
You guys are developing, like, each of your short story magazines. Are they completely non-secular stories, or is there a certain kind of theme about the stories? How do the magazines themselves work towards the storytelling?
Right. At the moment, they're a collection. They are just a collection. They've all roughly set in the same time period frame, so you're not jumping back and forth because we're still building history. But the idea is from each of these, the ones that prove popular with the feedback will be the ones we'll perhaps do longer serials in the future, and the real popular ones we'll try and do novels or novels from.
Very cool.
But at the moment it's very much still we're trying the market. We're seeing what people want. And we've had long discussions about what's the best way forward. And I think at the moment we're taking the sensible approach of we'll put things out that we like reading. And the editorial team feel people want to pay to. I think it's only £1.50. I'm not quite sure what that's in dollars these days. So you'll forgive me for that. I should check the exchange rate. But yeah, it's a small project. And we've got to grow, but for that we need writers, we need builders, and we're certainly going to listen to any good idea that people have got. And it's surprised me just how willing they have been, and what great ideas you've already received from people you wouldn't expect.
Well, I think too, I think for writers who are looking for a change of pace from what they normally do, it's a great way to experiment. And for newer people who are thinking about touching their feet into this water, it's probably the best space because they can get a little bit of the insight of how to world build and how to write in a team process. I think it's kind of beneficial to both ends of writers.
I do. I would agree, and I think some of the writers we've already got from people we know and people we have dealt with, what we're trying to build on is we do have both sides. We've got new writers who are happy to be in an environment where they've got a builder saying, well, these are the items that exist, this is how they interact. There's an editor to help them with things in the writing flow. Whereas the more experienced writers have the tools and they can go, oh, I've got an idea. It never worked for my world, but I could use it in this world.
Yeah. Or I could play with a whole different writing style or a different time period people won't like from what I normally do here because it's a different space. Yeah,
as I said.
Yeah, no.
As I said, we're still building up time periods, and as I said, we're still end of Stone Age, start of Bronze Age, and we're trying to do a sort of, as I understand, we're going to try to do the first run through to get a loose framework of how the time and civilizations are coming. But it's a whole world, and it needs to be filled in. So for that, we need authors, we need builders, and any idea is, I'm sure we can find a way to fit it.
What I could say too, just from a world builder standpoint, when I was given a tour around the software and I was shown the map and I was taken to an area of the world was much larger than what I was shown. And I don't know how much of it's filled in, but it's a big world. So I'm sure there's room for a lot of people.
It's a frighteningly big world. When I was running with it, I didn't grasp how big it was when I started the story. It's only as I came on the builder and he said, Cal did the tour, and he went, this is a big world. It's why we ended up having to put a scale bar on the map, because I think people just couldn't get how big the world really is, and they were starting to shrink territories. Mm-hmm. People sort of doing the equivalent of walking coast to coast in the United States in about 2 days. And I'm going, no, they're not walking that fast.
Yeah, I know, huh? Yeah, you're going across there in 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of magic, I guess. But
yeah, there's old-fashioned boots of 10,000 leagues. Yeah.
So, in your journey as a world builder in this thing, what is one real world piece of advice you'd have liked to know sooner?
Just one. I think it's have confidence to express different ideas, curveballs. So I think, as you were saying earlier, people have a mindset of fantasy, of it being medieval, like Tolkien's work or any of the other major writers of fantasy. And you need to think about this, because one thing we didn't think about travel very much when we first started out, and then we went, well, how wide a river can a Stone Age goblin get across?
or what will they have to do? How long will it take them to figure out how to get across?
Yeah. Yes.
There's sort of like this great image I saw, and I believe it was a picture taken by National Geographic in Kenya. And it was this river somewhere in Kenya, and a tree that bent in a strange sort of like L shape. And then at the end of the L, the trunk went back down into the ground. But then from where the tree went up in the middle of the river, they built a bridge to the tree. So then you would walk across the bridge to get to the tree trunk, and you walk across the tree trunk to get across the rest of the river. So,
you can't rule out the cleverness of the people. I think I discovered when I learned more about this is the average intelligence hasn't actually changed that much in all the time we've been around. It's more what technology we have and what theories we can get taught to exploit that. So people can surprise you by, even when they haven't, got university degrees, they can come up with ideas. You go, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. It was like, I remember reading, I think it was in National Geographic as well, about, I think it was the one tribe that never worked out how to make fire. Instead, they actually caught the embers from lightning strikes, apparently, and put them in clay. So anytime they needed to start a fire, they just poked an old amber from out of the clay and started a fire.
So they just worked around.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one of my big shocks from college was when I learned that the recurve bow was like older than like the longbow. And, with like all the different layers of wood turned in different directions to get it to work. And you're like, how could someone even figure that out in the first place? And it's amazing what people can figure out to do.
Oh, I know you having an amateur interest in history. It's just amazing what people think of or try and go, I wonder.
And I think as a world builder, and I'd just like to know your thoughts on this. One of the most exciting things is you can actually play around with that when you're developing a culture or whatever. You can take that idea and see how it works for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Being a builder is an awful lot of power, just like being a writer, because things don't happen unless you say it happens. And you can hold back the enlightenment for a century just because you go, you know what? Nah, no one's going to look at
that. Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, nah. I'm enjoying this period too much. I'll just drop an unfortunate accident and fell on the person who was thinking of inventing that. Yeah. But yeah, no, and that's the thing that's why we do need other writers, other builders, because as much it is a huge world and clever ideas will spring up, and we've already seen them, I think, in the first Fab Fables, and indeed the second one that came out last Wednesday, is that people, even with the limitations of this period, they're still coming up with great fantasy ideas, and you look at it and go, that's a great story idea. Yeah.
Wish I thought of that. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, having started this process, the editorial team have got several stories they're looking for authors at the moment, just because having done the building, several stories have thrown themselves out as natural suggestions, so they're currently up on the website for anyone who wants to have a look at them and suggest a story. Yeah, it's amazing how from when you start building properly, the stories that just jump out and suggest to you.
Give me a quick story of what was one thing that could have gotten you started quicker down the path of world building and trying to make a living at it.
Been brave enough to actually try, I think, is the honest answer. It's very easy when you have a full-time job and other commitments just to go, it's a hobby. No one's going to pay me to do it because I'd have to spend so much time doing it. It's just a private thing. And as I said, I knew I did it for my stories. I've been told that before. But it wasn't until I was invited on to the chief builder of Caladria, but I suddenly saw, there is a market here.
Yeah, I have to say I agree. I think most of those things are what kind of kept me, the same way. I have work all day and I want to work on it, but I don't have really time to play the games with my friends anymore because I have no time for any of this anymore, and it starts to eat at you, and it's good to find an outlet.
Yeah.
All right, so now we are going to enter the gauntlet round. And this is a round where you're just going to give sort of quick answers. First thing that comes to your mind, keep it as clean as possible. Okay. So what held you back from sharing your world?
The belief that no one would be interested in it.
Favorite types of fantasy worlds? Alien, Earth-like, or Earth-based?
Oh, I would say Earth-like, but I like most of them, so...
The ones that are written down, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your favorite time period for fantasy setting?
I've actually got quite more recent years back into steampunk settings as it's grown as a sort of fantasy science fiction of the Victorian era. But having done this project, I've found all the periods have interesting stories in them, and I think that there are some very quiet periods that when we get to them, we'll be treading new ground almost, and I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Yes, well, the one that keeps popping in my mind is the industrial age. What does the fantasy world look like in that time period? But,
can you industrialize alchemy?
Exactly. What is the most important habit or skill in creating a world?
Patience. Because you have to sit there and go through things that are dull but necessary so you can get to the good things. Because at the moment, the big thing I'm trying to do is get all the ocean areas on the map. As you've seen, the map is big and we've got all the land territories or regions on. But at the moment, we still haven't put the ocean areas in. And we're thinking, you don't really need it in this era because no one's doing deep sea voyages. But I'm sure when we get, as you said, when we get to that industrial revolution time, people are going to want to sail. They're probably going to sail by the time we get to the late Iron Age. So I'm trying to track on with that.
So what's one tool that you could not work without?
Pen and paper. As bizarre as that seems, I find it so much easier sometimes just to sketch, cross out, doodle, spider diagrams, ideas, so that I can then put it into a more smart electronic version to share with the rest of the management team. It's just, it is.
Yeah, I actually get that completely. I'm a computer programmer by trade right now, so I can be doing this kind of stuff full time. But even now, like if I'm working out an algorithm in my head or something like that, I like to sketch it out on paper and just see what the flow is going to look like and take it from there. So I think it's a great choice that people don't think about much.
Yeah.
What is one resource that you would offer a world builder starting down his or her own path?
One resource, the resource of time. If I could give that out to people, I would. But I think with time, as I learned when I was doing the National Novel Writing Month, a few years ago. You can make time for yourself in the short term for a month, and it's amazing how much time you realise you waste. Just going, yeah, I'll put that off, I'll put this off. If you can regiment yourself, you can still 5-10 minutes, and it's amazing what you can do for building in 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, no, just do it 10 minutes a day, and if you can do more, do more. If not, stop, I guess.
Yeah.
If you ended up in a world you created, what would be the first thing you would want to do?
Ooh. What would I want to do? Well, in some cases, I'd be very interested to meet some of these characters and see if they're as screwed up as I think I've made them. There's a few worlds I'd like to just test some of the physics a bit more and say, that actually worked.
That's not sailing.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I want to...
No, maybe just get a big sign that says, I apologize.
Okay, very good. That is awesome. And I do want to thank you very much, Bill, for your time. I know you're busy putting Caladria together. And good luck to you, and I'll be helping you out as I can. And
I'm looking forward to it.
Are there more places people can get in contact with you at if they want to either learn more about Caladria or follow you?
Yeah, well, I've tried to make a list. As I said, there is the main website at caladria.com, which I'm sure you'll put in the show notes.
Oh, this will all be in the show notes.
Yeah, we do have a Twitter account with Caladria1, the numeral. Caladria1. There is another one, and apparently that's another author, so so it's important. I certainly can be emailed at bill@caladria.com as well. And that's, I think, the easiest way to get hold of us. And there is a newsletter for the people who sign up to the website, so that usually has a small portion from me and the other heads in.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And everyone out there listening, you should go out right now to Caladria.com, check it out, sign up for the newsletter, and learn more about it. If you want to check out the software for yourself, contact Bill, and actually they can help you get started in working in Caladria or possibly other things. I want to thank you very much once again, Bill. Have a very good day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on.
And as always, make sure to go to gardul.com. That's GARDUL.com for the show notes. It'll be under podcasting, World Builder's Anvil. That's a great place to get all of the information from the episode that you've just listened to and to see all the resources that we've talked about in this episode. Thanks for joining us this episode of the World Builder's Anvil. Please be sure to rate and review us in iTunes, and please help get the word out to your friends about our show. And join me, Jeffrey W. Ingram at gardul.com, to see the progress of my world and learn why I made the choices I did. And please contact me and let me know the topics you would love to hear in the future. Now strike while the myth rolls high.